Writer James Foster and his wife M are spending their vacation at a resort in Loka. One morning they head to breakfast, where hotel staff, their faces hidden behind ritual masks of the country's indigenous people, greet them. The tourists are informed that the rainy season is beginning, a time celebrated with a festive gathering. As part of the tradition, all attendees have their faces painted in the coastal region's traditional colors, symbolizing friendship and marking the end of the holiday season. James and M observe the event without much enthusiasm. James, struggling with writer's block for his next book, is in a gloomy mood. M suggests they go on a tour, but James declines, encouraging her to go alone. Left to his own devices, James wanders along the beach and meets the charming blonde Gabby Bauer, who reveals she is a fan of his work. Flattered, as he has only published one book and rarely receives attention, James enjoys the encounter. Gabby introduces James to her husband, Albin, and invites James and M to join them for dinner. That evening, the four dine at a Chinese restaurant, sharing stories about their lives and how they met. Gabby, an actress, humorously demonstrates how to botch a commercial. She later admits she has been eagerly awaiting James's second book. M reveals James's secret: he hasn't written anything in a long time, much to his discomfort. James explains that he came to the resort seeking inspiration, but finds it dismal. They are supported by M's father, who owns a publishing house, and M is growing weary of being the family's breadwinner. After dinner, the group goes dancing, and James finds himself increasingly drawn to Gabby. The next day, the Bauers invite the Fosters to explore outside the hotel grounds, a strictly forbidden activity for tourists. The country is impoverished, and locals are known to steal from foreigners. Despite the risks, James reassures M, trusting their experienced friends who have been here before and know the local customs. Gabby enthusiastically welcomes the Fosters at their car, borrowed from a hotel employee. The four set off beyond the gates, traveling along a mountain road, marveling at breathtaking views, until they reach a pristine beach. There, they grill sausages and drink alcohol. During a private conversation, M confides in Albin about her strained relationship with her father, whose disdain for James was a key factor in her decision to marry him. Meanwhile, James steps into the bushes, where Gabby suddenly grabs him, initiating a passionate encounter that leaves James unexpectedly exhilarated. After a long day of sunbathing and feasting, the group decides to return to the hotel. James, being the soberest, takes the wheel. While driving, the car's headlights fail, and James accidentally hits and kills a man in the darkness. Though James and M want to call the police, Gabby and Albin insist otherwise, warning of the country's brutal justice system, which could lead to their execution without trial. The group leaves the body on the road and abandons the car near the hotel. At the hotel gate, they concoct a story about getting lost in the dark. After some persuasion, they are allowed back in. The next morning, police officers arrive at the Fosters' room, arresting the couple and taking them to the station, where they are placed in separate cells and made to change into white robes. Later, Detective Errol Thresh visits James, explaining that the accident involved his uncle's car, a resort employee. To avoid legal trouble, Thresh suggests claiming the car was stolen, a story already corroborated by the Bauers and M. According to their fabricated account, a drunken James struck a local farmer and fled the scene without reporting the incident. Thresh further explains that, under local law, the farmer's eldest son must kill James to restore the family's honor. However, the country offers an alternative for foreign tourists. A significant payment ensures the creation of a double who will be executed in the offender's place. The arrangement benefits all parties. The state treasury is enriched, the family's honor is preserved, and the tourist escapes unharmed. James agrees, signing a contract and paying the required fee. He is then stripped and subjected to various measurements and procedures before being submerged in a thick red liquid that envelops his body. During the process of creating his double, James experiences vivid hallucinations featuring Gabby and loses consciousness. He awakens in a medical room with M by his side. She informs him that the procedure was successful. The couple is led to a viewing room where Thresh explains that, in rare cases, multiple attempts are necessary. However, James's procedure succeeded on the first try. Thresh unveils the body of James's double, who looks exactly like him. Though unwilling, the couple is told they must witness the execution, a mandatory part of the process. To their horror, the double regains consciousness, panic-stricken, which deeply unsettles them. Later in the station's basement, the execution takes place. The double is tied to a post, facing an audience that includes James and M. The farmer's 13-year-old son, holding a knife, is brought in. The double begs for mercy, addressing M directly, which drives her to tears. The boy approaches and repeatedly stabs the double in the abdomen. M averts her gaze, but James watches in morbid fascination. Once the execution is over, the Fosters are released and given an urn containing the double's ashes as a parting gift. That evening, a traumatized M packs her belongings, determined to leave the country. James claims he cannot find his passport, preventing his departure. M, distraught, accuses him of being unnervingly indifferent to the double's gruesome death. James suggests she return home alone, promising to follow once he resolves the passport issue. As M leaves, bewildered by her husband's transformation, James extends his stay at the hotel for another week. He encounters Gabby, who seeks his forgiveness and reveals the Bowers' backstory. On their first visit, Albin worked as a consultant for the construction of a neighboring resort. During the project, a tragic accident claimed the lives of 2 workers, and the hotel owner blamed Albin. The Bowers also had to finance the execution of their doubles, so they fully understand what he's been through and suggest he think of it as a gift, given his lack of inspiration. Gabby invites James to their villa, where Albin greets him, congratulating him on his rebirth and introducing him to their friends, wealthy tourists like Charles, Jennifer, Dr. Moden, and the stunning Bex. They all share a dark secret. Each of them has committed a crime and escaped punishment by having their doubles executed. Charles speaks about the harsh laws of Loka and poses a chilling question. Was it really James's clone who was killed, or could it have been the real James? This thought haunts him constantly. James brushes it off with a laugh, but in the privacy of the bathroom, struggles to shake the unsettling idea. M calls him, but he ignores her. Gabby soon appears, reassuring him that the first day is the hardest, as it feels like living a second life. Gunshots suddenly echo from the living room, but Gabby calms James, explaining it's just a prank. Later, Charles promises to help James sort out his passport issue. Albin reveals that the hotel owner who framed him was awarded a medal for his contributions to Loka's prosperity. The group plans revenge by breaking into his home to steal the medal. They invite James to join, and he agrees. Sometime later, wearing ritual masks, the group invades the owner's house. Inside, they find not only the owner, but also several guests. The intruders tie them up, mocking and threatening them with weapons. Gabby hands James a gun, urging him to experience the thrill of killing. When he hesitates, she aims the gun at the homeowner herself. Before she can act, Albin intervenes to defuse the tension. Suddenly, another man appears with a gun, triggering a violent shootout. The house's occupants are killed, Albin is shot in the leg, and the group flees, carrying him to James's room, where M is horrified by the bloodied scene. The Bowers, James, and their friends are arrested. While in their cell, they casually discuss their plans, and Dr. Moden boasts about Loka's unmatched cloning technology. Detective Thresh arrives, announcing that the country is fed up with their antics, and this time the rules will change. The group is dragged to the basement, where policemen act as executioners since the victims had no children. The prisoners scream and beg for mercy, some resisting but ultimately succumbing to the officers' knives. It turns out they were clones, as the wealthy tourists had, once again, bribed their way out of accountability. Back in his room, James finds M packing her belongings. She refuses to wait any longer for his passport, claiming he's changed. His eyes, she says, are as lifeless as dead crabs. She leaves, heartbroken. James places a second urn next to the first and returns to the company of the Bowers and their friends. Gabby comforts him, suggesting that M wasn't right for him anyway. She offers him a ritual substance from Loka, altering his consciousness. The night culminates in an intimate encounter that escalates into an orgy. From then on, James behaves recklessly, abandoning all decorum and mocking those around him, cheered on by his new companions. One day, Charles informs James that his passport issue involves Thresh, who opposes his departure, hoping to extort more money from him. The group devises a plan to kidnap Thresh and teach him a lesson. They drive to a hospital where the detective is staying. James stays by the car while the others enter, soon emerging with a man whose head is covered by a sack. They take their captive to the Bowers' villa. Under the influence of substances and spurred on by Gabby, James brutally beats the man. His friends humiliate the victim further, urinating on him in a display of impunity. Suddenly, Gabby removes the sack, revealing the captive to be a clone of James himself. Shocked, James learns it was a prank. Deeply disturbed, he retreats to his room. From the street below, his new friends serenade him, while Gabby suggests bringing the clone for a shared love experience. James retrieves his hidden passport from under the sink and leaves for the airport the next morning. However, his bus is pursued by cars carrying his tormentors. Shooting and blocking the road, Gabby taunts him, forcing the driver and passengers to give James up. After the bus leaves, the group forces Foster to walk back to the hotel. Meanwhile, Gabby lounges on the hood of the car that had been following him, laughing and mocking him. She calls him pathetic, explaining that the group had been amusing themselves at his expense the entire time. They had been plotting ways to involve him in their twisted games, but he managed to do it himself by hitting the poor farmer. She reveals she never read his book and isn't a fan. In fact, there isn't a single good review of his work anywhere. She finds it hilarious. While Gabby is momentarily distracted, Foster seizes the opportunity to escape. Gabby fires at him, hitting him in the leg. Limping, James stumbles upon the farmer's house and collapses. The family takes him in and tends to his wound. Suddenly, he sees the boy who executed his clone. Delirious, James begins to hallucinate. When he regains consciousness, James steps outside only to find that the Bowers and the rest of the group have tracked him down. The torment continues as Gabby orders a dog to be brought in. Instead, Charles leads out yet another clone of James, wearing a collar and leash. Gabby commands Foster to kill the clone, claiming that only through blood can he free himself from the past, become strong, and truly join them. When James refuses, they sick the clone on him. In a brutal fight, James beats his double to death with his bare hands. Gabby comforts James, baring her chest and smearing it with the dog's warm blood, offering herself to feed him. The next day, James tells his wife he's coming back. He packs the urns containing the clone's ashes and heads to the airport with the group. He sits in silence while the others chat and discuss their post-return plans. At the airport, James watches as they all board their flight. He remains in the waiting area, even as his own flight is called for boarding. Later, James finds himself at the abandoned panoramic pool designed by Alban. As the weather takes a turn, Foster sits alone under the pouring rain, lost in thought. The film's ending is open to interpretation. Perhaps James has fully confronted his darkest impulses and realizes there's no place for him in normal life. Or maybe the real James was killed during one of the executions, and the person we've been following is just a clone who has no life outside the resort. In any case, the conclusion is ambiguous, leaving viewers to draw their own meanings.